Oh, it's a vibe. Listen to it. Of course you listen to it. How many times did you listen to it before it was finished and you could let it go? Was it quick?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot of times.
For me, when I heard it for the very first time, I would have just been happy from the second I heard it, like, because it's so immediate and so instant and so stunning. But I suppose I should remind everybody who I'm talking to, because I have a habit of just picking up wherever I started about 10 minutes ago. Arlo, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
How's it going?
Good. I feel well. I'm kind of in this nice creative flow, kind of having finished the record.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of writing and
Good.
resting.
That often happens, right? Like once you actually get something that you visualized or you've dreamed of out of your system, then new things emerge. And
Exactly.
you know, it's best not to get in the way of those. Does it make you sort of wonder, is it done? This new thing I just did would have fit perfectly on this new album.
I feel like, honestly, when a record is finished, like the space is cleared in my heart and I kind of, it becomes then a gift that I give away. And then there's just space, like a complete blank slate. And I feel like the record was made in this like very contained period of time and like nothing else would really fit. It was just like this one snapshot.
How do you know when your heart is full enough to make a record, or when your heart has something that you need to release?
There's just this urgency. I remember my friend describing it as like a bird's urge to migrate. There's just like something pulling you in a direction that's like almost subconscious. And that's how I feel.
Sometimes I feel that, but I don't know what I want to make or what I want to say. And there's 5 things that I want to do. And it depends on what time of the day I wake up. And I realize I'm not in a situation where I'm clear enough or have purity of vision to be able to I'm just going to be searching in the dark. Does it ever happen to you?
I think that's a good thing, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you go fishing and you just sit and you wait. And sometimes nothing comes and it can be frustrating or confusing, or sometimes something comes you didn't expect. But I think just allowing for being stuck or having some kind of block or wanting to go for a walk instead and hang out with your friends and leave the studio after 45 minutes. Like it can be anything.
It sounds like you have a pretty mature relationship with time. Most of us are racing against it, trying to make more of it, running out of it. Even in just the last couple of minutes of talking to you, it seems to me that you respect time and you respect what it needs to do. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think it took me a while to kind of learn patience. I think especially when it comes to writing, I want it to be perfect now. And I think I had that real sense of kind of frantically searching after the perfect way to say something, the perfect phrasing, the perfect chords. But then I actually, in this writing process, found proof that when you actually leave things alone and allow for them to take the time that they're going to take, then that's when the best things come.
Is Collapsed in Sunbeams perfect in its form?
I think it is what it is. I rarely use the word perfect, but I feel like it captures where I was then, and it felt honest, and it felt like who I was at the time.
When you look back on that time and that person, does it feel like light years ago, or does it feel like yesterday?
It feels like light years ago. Honestly, it feels like so long ago. I feel like I've lived a lot of life in between then and now.
Which is so funny because most artists release music and then they start to tour it and do all the shenanigans, right?
Shenanigans.
You know,
I like that.
you know, all the stuff that comes with it. You know, hi, I'm Shenanigans. Nice to meet you. You know,
Not that.
but you know what I mean. I'm a little bit shenanigans. I mean, it's all part of the stuff you weren't sure what you were going to have to do alongside what you love to do, and that takes up time and sometimes the living of the life actually takes a back seat to all of that stuff. How were you able to prioritize life lived over the pressures and the stuff that comes with being Arlo Parks, the recognizable artist, not the human?
I feel like it's kind of a constant struggle. I think I realized I have to be very intentional about like carving out that space for rest. And honestly, I think that shows in the work. Like when I have rested, when I have like gone to the beach or met someone new or traveled, the work is so much more rich and like my cup is full. And then when I try and just work through my life, then I realize I have nothing to say. And that's even worse. So
yeah,
learning to chill.
Where else do you get a line like that, like this? You know, I love this lyric so much. I'm so glad you made it the central theme of the song, the North Star, which is when you brace all my impurities and I feel clean again. It's interesting. That makes me feel a couple of different ways. Like on the one side of it, I love the purity of intent. The idea of being with someone who ultimately makes you feel like even through your impurities, it's okay. There's a flawlessness to being flawed.
Yeah.
But then also, to embrace someone's impurities is to absorb their impurities as well. And that can sometimes cross a line into a selfish release. Help me get over myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know where it sits for you, but I love the fact that on any given day it could mean both.
Exactly. It's exactly that. I think it started off as kind of a celebration of like the new community that I'd found in LA and the people that made me kind of feel like myself and like I could be myself. And then I started thinking about the idea of, somebody completing you and somebody kind of taking on the things about you that you don't like and somehow saving you, and that kind of double meaning I think was really interesting.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's one of the great tests of any long-term relationship, friendship or otherwise. Well, it's all friendship. Is if you can present those flaws to people and someone doesn't feel either the need to save them or you don't feel the need to be saved. That's when you know you got something good going on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I do think it's kind of like a whole bunch of things set in motion and the end is always going to be the same.
Exactly.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. Yeah, no, that balance is so interesting. I think finding people who you do feel like you can lean on and not having that kind of like solitude, lone wolf, kind of insular approach to your pain and kind of caving in and never looking outwards. But then also knowing that the change has to come from within.
I love that you came searching for that in Los Angeles. It's a city that gets a bad reputation for community and friendship circles. A lot of people talk about it in terms of singular ambition, drive, all those words that kind of mean something when you're at a certain point in your life, and left and right of them, they can be quite ugly. I don't find LA ugly at all. I've found some of the most beautiful relationships and amazing people I've ever known in this city and have a great community around me. How's your experience been out here?
I feel the same, honestly. I think maybe I came here just completely open. I didn't really have that many pre-existing kind of notions of what it might be like. And I came also, wanting to make a record and having these people who I had that thing in common with, who were just creative and loved music, and that community kind of just spread out into all kinds of creative people. And I don't know, I think I found it feels like home. I think there was this sense of like the city did like embrace me, and I feel like, I don't know, I wanted a new adventure and I just found good people and made a record that I love, and that's kind of made me think of LA like fondly forever.
Well, you also worked with a member of a band that was like 50 deep and all lived together for about 5 years. So
Oh yeah.
Ramil understands exactly what
He
it
does.
means to be able to share and collaborate and share space.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to work with the people you choose to work with, and who exactly did you make this album with, just for people who don't know?
So I have a long list of collaborators, all wonderful people and all who kind of bring different things out of me. So I worked a lot with Ramil. This song in particular, Impurities, was Carter Lang and Ramil. And I honestly just chose them because I was a big fan, and I felt like, it's the first track on the record is kind of more spoken word, and this is the first like song on the record.
Perfect.
And I wanted it to feel like a door opening in that sense of atmosphere and richness.
Yeah.
And then the lyrics kind of then root you in like, it's the people are the home. And I love the people that make me feel at home.
What was the process of finding the thoughts, converting them to words and making them exist? Like, how did you find the song on this music?
I honestly don't know. It was one of those songs that almost happened like by accident, because it was the first day that me and Rome met. And we spent most of the day just hanging out. And then this was kind of just made like as an aside and very, very quickly. And he just played me that sample and the lightning bolt just struck.
Yeah.
And I recorded it. And then I was like, okay, let's go back to hanging out and like
awesome.
listening to the Beatles and like driving around. It was, yeah. And I think that, those songs that happen almost by accident or that feel like you're just like channeling something, you're just like a vessel for this moment. And I think I only started to really understand what I was writing about retrospectively. In the moment, it just was like,
Yeah, and
I needed it.
I think that's the only way you really should. I don't know, it's not that easy every time. A lot of times, it is a conscious experience and you have to search for what it is you're trying to say, and it's deep and you need it's like a garden sort of spade and cement. It's like, I've got to just find this thing and I'm never going to find it.
Yes.
But the dream is obviously to be able to listen back to it and realize that even you were caught off guard.
And honestly, it's all the songs on the record were like that.
Yeah.
I never went into it with my Spade. The Spade vibe is not for me.
That's
I'm
perfect.
just like when it comes, it
Yeah.
comes.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. So, what role has the previous few years and finding us and your fans and your audience and us and us finding you? What, if any, impact has that had on this album and on this point in your life? Can you separate it completely? Do you let it absorb?
I feel like the process that I make music by is always going to be quite insular. I feel like I try and cultivate that almost. Like I like the idea of feeling like a teenager in my bedroom all the time. Like I like feeling like I'm away from the world and then I can kind of craft this little thing that is just for me, at least for now. But I think definitely a big impact that like being out in the world and having people embrace my music was just, it gave me a lot more courage. I was like, I can be brave, I can be myself. And that, I guess, encouraged me to go inwards a lot more radically on this record rather than speaking about characters and people outside of me. It was a lot more I and like
Interesting.
the self.
Yeah, there was a lot of really beautiful observant songwriting on your debut album, and I never felt like you were writing by proxy, but it definitely felt like you were. It was an empathetic album, I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of empathy, a lot of sharing, a lot of searching, a lot of trying to repair and fix. So far, this, based on what I'm hearing right now, this doesn't sound like that.
Yeah, it's a little different. And I don't know, I guess I didn't go into making this record with an intention. It was just like, I don't know, I was taking notes of growth, I guess, like unconsciously, and just taking notes of what was around me and how I felt about the world and how that changed, and just made music that felt really good. I was just like chasing that feeling.
Who else did you work with on this record apart from Carter and Ramil?
I worked with Buddy Ross, I worked with Ariel Rekscheid, I worked with Paul Epworth.
Amazing.
I worked with Bird, I did some of it myself as well.
Yeah, and let's talk about that side of it. I know you make your own music and I know that you produce yourself and ultimately you co-produce everything even if you're working with other people. So when you're on your own, how do you find that experience? Would you personally like to make an entire project on your own in the future?
No. No, I'm a very, like, I need people. Like, when I spend too long by myself, I'm like, ooh,
yeah,
this is not for me. I think what I enjoyed about kind of demoing alone, though, is that I felt like that's where I am my most courageous because no one's watching and I can make mistakes and I can kind of fumble around. And, I made a few of the songs on tour. One of the songs called Dog Rose I made in like this hotel room in Toronto. And it's just to kind of bottle the lightning, honestly. It's like it will strike me and I just have to.
gotta get it done.
I have to get it done. I have to sketch it out. Otherwise I'll forget because I have bad memory. So it's more out of necessity rather than
the desire to work in room
solo.
306 in a Marriott in Toronto.
Ooh, yeah. Room 306.
We've all stayed in room 306, Arlo. It's a rough day.
It's a rough day.
You got a chance to do some really amazing shows and see stages that people dream of seeing. Going into environments with artists who love you, like Ari, and getting a chance to share in his world for a split second. What did you enjoy about that?
I feel like seeing somebody, seeing his show, like after I played, seeing his show, seeing the way that he commands that stage, seeing like just feeling that energy and being like a small part of such a like massive machine and just being like a student. I'd never been in a stadium before, just in any way.
Not even as a punter or paying visit.
No. So I just like was stood there. I was like,
wow.
This
so your
is
first
a
stadium,
lot of people.
Your first stadium was you in a stadium.
Yeah, and the last time I played that city was like in a pub that like smelled horrible, and there were like 50 people there, and it was the last show before the pandemic, and then it ended up. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the album. I know it's a we've got a little bit of time, but I want to talk about this album. My Soft Machine. I want to talk about that. The name of the album. Soft Machine conjures up lots of different imagery for me, predominantly and immediately the band. So what was it that inspired the title?
It was this film that I watched called The Souvenir, and I wanted the title of the record to kind of convey this sense of it being the world through my lens, and kind of that sense of ebb and flow, that sense of contrast, that a lot of the record is kind of about like feeling deeply and surrendering to that feeling, or kind of closing up and hiding behind walls. And I think even in terms of the instrumentation, there are moments that are a little bit more abrasive and energized, and there are moments that are more kind of soft and hypnotic. And I just wanted something that had that sense of
I
contrast.
heard some edge. I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but I mean,
Some
obviously, you
edge.
know, I heard a couple of songs a little while back, and there was definitely, and by edge, you've always had that, but I mean, it was tough. Like some of the musicality in there and some of the performance in there, I felt there was an energy that you tapped into that I hadn't heard on the debut album.
Definitely. And I think honestly that just came from like just growth, and also feeling like I was able to kind of probe into the different corners of my musical tastes.
That's something I want to talk a bit about, because I feel like you came out with such a distinctive voice in an area that people were drawn to, and it was unique. And it was the cross between poetic thought, melody, soul music, pop music. It was Björk. It was, you know, Saul Williams. It was just all this beautiful thing wrapped up. This is just my observations. In a way, we all did you a disservice because we were like, well, that's Arlo, right? And then when I heard this new music, and this is why I made the joke, not even a joke, because they're like arguably my favorite rock band of all time. And I said, man, this is rough. Like I hear almost Chino melodies in there. And that's when Toby was like, well, you should talk to Arlo about Deftones. And I want to explore your taste a little bit, because I think we did you a disservice before by not asking those questions, or I didn't.
I feel like, yeah, my tastes, I guess, would be maybe surprising to some people. Like, I listen to mainly ambient music at the moment, because this is just like my brain toothpaste, as I call it. But listening to a lot of like Duval Timothy and Brian Eno, and also a lot of dance music. I listen to a lot of Object. I listen to like Overmono, Pearson Sound, and I listen to a lot of rock music. I love White Pony so dearly, and I saw Deftones play at this like 1,000-cap venue, O2 Kentish Town, in North London.
When was that?
Like a few months ago, the day that I finished the song.
Wow.
That seems like it's in that.
Because I've seen a couple of shows of them there, and that I feel like that's their living room. I mean, I've seen Chino, scorch that room. I mean, I've seen him crowd surf from the front to the back. Get a pint of beer. This is a true story. Get a pint of beer and then jump up on everyone's shoulders and crowd surf back. To be fair, a decent amount of the beer still in the pint glass.
Wow.
And then smash the beer and keep saying, I mean, this was younger Chino, who probably be like, don't tell that story, bro. But like, they are, to me, like on their day, they make that rage that people search for in a room like that. It's emotional.
It is. It is so emotional. And I think I kind of wanted to just tap into that sense of like abandon, that sense of, I think the first record, there was a little bit more sense of control. And I was kind of like, what happens if I dissolve that? I was listening to that, and I was listening to like MBV and that song Who Sees You, and I was like, how that makes me feel.
How did they make it so soft?
I know.
And yet it's just like,
it's like
intense.
So intense, but it's so soft,
so ethereal. That to me is the magic act of what Kevin Shields achieved, is the ability to be able to put that wall in front of you, and yet I'm not scared by it.
Yeah.
It doesn't intimidate me.
It's so...
Trent does that as well.
And it's so delicate. How is it so delicate?
Yeah, Trent Reznor is a master at that too. He can hit you so hard, and at the end, you're almost like, thank you. You know? Thank you. Like, I needed that. Like, it's amazing. The ambient thing's interesting to me as well. I've been listening to a lot of things like Nils Fram and Max Richter, a lot of solo piano, a lot of what Fred would call the essential reverb, the idea of drones and stuff, which you just mentioned with Brian Eno and things like that. Where does that take you, and how do you use that in your life?
I feel like, well, in the music, I feel like my kind of ambient music taste kind of would like veer more towards like, there's this record called Komachi by Mai Tai, which is just like that's wonderful. There's this.
How do you spell Mai Tai? Do you know?
MEITEI.
Okay, I'm checking it out. Thank you.
And then there's this record by like Anne La Plantine, and then I listened to this NTS thing, which was this kind of more like doom ambient music by this guy called Paul Chain.
What is doom ambient music?
I don't know. It's like imagine like My Bloody Valentine, but like just very like muffled.
Wow.
And it's like,
So suspenseful.
yeah, it's suspenseful, and it's just like this kind of like bubbling like thing, and it's really good.
See, simmering and suspense aren't two things I've ever leaned into in my music. The only suspense I've ever really embraced is the hard dynamic of a soft part and a hard part,
Yeah.
right? So I know it's going to get hard again. I know it's going to get hard again. And boom, and that I'm into.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested to know how I feel if I really immersed myself, like you're saying, into something that has a long-term tension to it.
I like that though. I like it when there's this tension that gets the point where it's almost unbearable, and then it drops you.
I really feel like you are somebody, and I don't know if this will land you'll understand where I'm coming from, but your willingness to be curious and to learn, and your ability to absorb that and translate it goes beyond music. I wonder whether or not there are other areas of the arts, perhaps in front of the camera or even behind the camera, that interest you.
Definitely. One day I would love to be in a movie, and I would also love to write a script.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. I mean, I think you'd be an incredible actor, but I think you'd write something remarkable.
There are moments where I've like kind of started brainstorming bits and pieces, and I guess the one thing is that with something like a script or a novel, you really do just have to like sit down and do it for a long time.
I don't know how people do it.
I know, and I have to be like in a certain, I think maybe a less like frenetic like time in my life.
Yeah.
When I'm like in my like mid-40s in upstate New York.
Calm down. Calm down. Some of us are already there, mate. Settle down. Don't put your dreams are not my problem. I think it's something cool to look forward to. And the idea of you being able to pick anywhere in the world. This is the artist's life. And this is the thing I always try to bring it back to at this point in my life when I talk to someone inspiring like you, for anyone who's looking for inspiration, is that the reason for the risk, the reason for the hard work, the reason for embracing all of the unknowns, is that if you can get yourself to a place where, as you've done, you understand your purpose and you understand your value, then really there is no box. And you can choose at any given time to go to an airport with no fixed agenda or destination, buy a ticket, fly somewhere, and write something.
Yeah.
And that's your life.
Exactly. That is my life. And it's so exciting to know that. I think it's so exciting as well to know that there are so many people out there as well who do many different things and who do them well and who have kind of different phases of their life and kind of creative flow, and who might just maybe take 3 years to just write a novel because that's what feels right, or maybe they'll build furniture, or maybe it'll be, like going back to school and studying architecture, whatever it might be. And having that freedom is really exciting because I feel like I can kind of go anywhere.
We're not going to talk too much more about the Soft Machine because it's a little bit way off, and there are people here at Apple Music who are dying to talk to you about the Soft Machine, and so I have to play my part. But I've really enjoyed talking about life, and you're in LA for a while now, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we should get that coffee and talk about Deftones.
Let's do it.
Talk about the White Pony.
The White Pony.